The issue again, Brian, is it prosecutable? And I just don't see it.
Because of the statute of limitations, or you just don't see criminal behavior?
Well, look, they're throwing around the word treason the last couple of days, which, is preposterous, because treason is making war on the United States or aiding our wartime enemies, which obviously didn't happen here.
All right, folks, that is Fox News' top legal contributor, Andy McCarthy, a legendary conservative lawyer, one of the editors at the Conservative National Review. Megyn Kelly, MAGA Megyn Kelly, loves this guy and often defers to him for legal advice. Well, here he is on camera on Fox News, debunking in real time many of the falsehoods and ridiculous claims made by Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard in their desperate attempt to distract from the Epstein files by proposing that President Obama engaged in some sort of seditious, treasonous coup attempt against Trump. And then he goes on in this very segment to politely humiliate Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who is also desperate to try to gin this up and help Trump and Tulsi out over the Epstein debacle. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we're going to play some more of this conversation between Brian Kilmeade on Fox News and Andy McCarthy, whom we've referenced in previous videos because he's been writing quite a bit on the National Review, or at the National Review, about the incompetence of Tulsi Gabbard, the dishonesty of her claims. This is the first time that I'm aware of that he does it on camera and goes so far as to debunk Ted Cruz, who was previously on Fox News.
Fox News contributor and former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andy McCarthy joins us now. But yet, the former president was involved in trying to find out the role that Russia played and suddenly was interested in the role of possible collusion with the Trump campaign.
Yeah, well, Brian, I don't think that's a new disclosure or a new revelation. I wrote a book about this 8 years ago called Ball of Collusion, which laid this out.
And I just want to say here, too, as a reminder, because I just in case it was not clear, Andy McCarthy does not like President Obama. He does not like President Biden. He has his issues with Donald Trump and the Trump administration, but he's just inclined predispositionally to support Trump over Obama and Biden. And he's Andy McCarthy, as much as anybody in the Fox News orbit, really, really wants to stick it to Obama. So to be very clear, he has downplayed the significance of Russia's attempts to meddle in the 2016 election to Trump's benefit. But again, so keep that in mind with what you hear him say here, because even with those biases to downplay the attempt by Russia to interfere in the election for Trump's benefit, he still calls out this transparent ploy for what it is, a desperate attempt that has no substance behind it in terms of Tulsi Gabbard's claims about President Obama engaging in sedition.
There's no doubt that Obama was complicit up to his neck in what I think was the worst political dirty trick in American history. The issue narrowly is whether there's any crime that comes out of that under circumstances where, even President Trump spent all of 2024 telling people that presidents have to have complete immunity from prosecution, and this all happened 9 years ago.
True.
And again, before we play the rest of this clip, that's a really good point that I appreciate McCarthy bringing up, which is that Trump has been begging for presidential immunity for years, and he got a lot of that. I mean, not quite total sovereign immunity, but for all intents and purposes, it will be virtually impossible to ever prosecute a former president, it sure seems, based on the Supreme Court ruling. And that is another hurdle. Not only is there no substance to these claims, as McCarthy has said and will continue to lay out, but even if there were, Obama has immunity and couldn't be prosecuted anyway.
The statute of limitations, got it. Couple of things I think that people should understand, and I think what the DNI is hoping for people to understand, is that the thought of Russia hacking our election was something that was being investigated since 2014, before Donald Trump was even running. And when they looked at what he did, they didn't infiltrate and make any significant infiltration to the election. And there was no evidence of any collusion with the Trump campaign. That seems trumped up by Barack Obama. Senator Ted Cruz said this about what the new paperwork that was just released. Tell me what you think.
December 8th, Obama's presidential daily briefing. Here's what it said, quote, "We assess that Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure." So all the way up to December 8th, Over and over and over again, they say, no Russia, no Russia, no Russia. Well, December 9th should be a day that will live in infamy, because this is a moment when senior members of our government decided to lie to the American people and to sabotage President Donald Trump.
And really did for the next 2 years. Correct? And do you think we need to know why?
Well, I respectfully disagree with Senator Cruz's interpretation of that, because I think what he's referring to is they were concerned about Russian attacks on election infrastructure. And what they were talking about after the election was Russian hacking of the DNC and the messaging that was anti-Clinton that they put out. Even the Trump CIA agrees that that happened.
There you have it, folks. Even this guy, this Fox News lawyer, this conservative stalwart who Megyn Kelly loves, is like, Ted Cruz is just full of shit. He's being polite about it because they're ideological allies. It's just that even he finds Ted Cruz's interpretation so wildly dishonest. It's ridiculous. It really, really is. And it's a desperate attempt to distract from the Epstein files, which is, again, I love three things. This story does three things for me. Number one, it allows us to debunk a desperate right-wing conspiracy theory, humiliating Trump and MAGA and Tulsi. We're able to do so, the second thing that I love about it, by using Fox News and Fox News' own top legal contributor and legal analyst, Andy McCarthy. And number three, we also get to point out that this is a transparent attempt to distract from the Epstein files. So we get to go right back where we started and keep talking about the Epstein files. But since we're talking about Andy McCarthy here, I just really want to drive this point home. So he wrote after her press conference, DNI Tulsi Gabbard dumps more documents, says she's referring to Obama for possible criminal prosecution. If there were a criminal offense that fit, Gabbard and Trump would cite it rather than chanting treason. Earlier today, DNI Tulsi Gabbard declassified and released a House Intelligence Committee report that she claims exposed how the Obama administration manufactured the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that they knew was false, promoting the lie that Vladimir Putin and the Russian government helped President Trump win the 2016 election. The report, said to have been principally drafted by Kash Patel, who is now Trump's FBI director, when he was a top House Intelligence Committee staffer, was assembled in 2017 when Republicans led the committee. It is dated September 18th, 2020, because that's apparently when final edits were made. DNI Gabbard says the report is part of a package, along with emails she dumped last week, with which she is referring former President Barack Obama to Trump Attorney General Pam Bondi for possible criminal prosecution. Gabbard's description of the report cannot withstand perusal of its first page, which provides this summary. Most ICA judgment on Russia's activities in the U.S. election employed proper analytic tradecraft and were consistent with observed Russian behavior. The key judgments found to be credible include Vladimir Putin ordered conventional and cyber influence operations, notably by leaking politically sensitive emails obtained from computer intrusion. Number two, Putin's principal motivations in these operations were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process and to weaken what the Russians considered to be an inevitable Clinton presidency. And three, Putin held back on leaking some compromising material for post-election use against the expected Clinton administration. Obviously, House Republicans did not believe the ICA was false and manufactured. They assessed instead that it was true in these three significant particulars and that it accurately reflected, quote, observed Russian behavior. Indeed, the heading for the committee's first finding in the report is, quote, the bulk of ICA judgment on Russia's election operations were sound and employed proper tradecraft. What the House committee found to be insufficiently supported and indicative of a substandard tradecraft was the ICA's judgment that Putin developed, quote, a clear preference for candidate Trump and, quote, aspired to help his chances of victory. The House's findings, then, are substantially indistinguishable from those in the Trump CIA report, released just a few days before Gabbard started publishing documents she declassified. That's unsurprising because Trump's current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, served on the House Judiciary Committee that investigated Russiagate. He was also assigned to the Intelligence Committee beginning in 2019 before leaving in the House in late May 2020 to become the National Intelligence Director in Trump's first administration. The new CIA report found that the 2016 election, ICA was on firm footing in concluding with, quote, high confidence that Putin's regime meddled in the 2016 election and did so for the purpose of denigrating Clinton, whom Putin expected would be the next president and whose effectiveness that he thus sought to undermine. But the CIA report, like the House Intelligence Committee report, took issue with the conclusion that Putin was trying to help Trump. To repeat what I've said here, and here, there is nothing new to this. Again, this is Andy McCarthy, but he says the Clinton campaign manufactured the Trump-Russia collusion farce, heavily reliant on the bogus Steele dossier in a desperate attempt to distract voters from Clinton's own email scandal. In July 2016, Obama was briefed by then CIA Director John Brennan on the Clinton campaign strategy to vilify Trump by accusing him of collaborating with Putin. Obama's Justice Department and the FBI obtained Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISA, court warrants to monitor the Trump campaign through its former advisor, Carter Page, by representing to the FISA court under oath that Trump's campaign was in, quote, a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation with Putin's regime. After Trump shockingly won the 2016 election, Obama orders his intelligence agencies to compile the ICA. An intelligence assessment that would normally have taken well over a year was rushed out in just a few weeks while Obama was still in office, so his administration could control its publication. While the ICA correctly judged that Russia meddled in order to hurt Clinton, it added the judgment that Putin had aspired to help Trump. The dizzying speed of the report's composition and publication, coupled with the conclusion of that final, insufficiently afforded judgment, was patently designed to fuel the Democrats' Clinton campaign-generated storyline that Trump had colluded with Russia to steal the election. The day before the ICA was briefed to then President-elect Donald Trump, Obama convened an Oval Office meeting with Vice President Biden and his top national security officials, at which they discussed Russia's election interference, Trump transition official Michael Flynn's contacts with the Russian ambassador to the United States, which were painted as sinister, though they were not, and the Obama administration's withholding of intelligence about Russia from the incoming Trump team. As I recounted in 2020, retracing what I detailed in Ball of Collusion 2 years earlier, based on public reporting, in the last minutes of the Obama administration, then National Security Advisor Susan Rice wrote a memo to the file discussing January 5th White House meeting led by Obama. The memo minimized Obama's role, shifting primary responsibility for the probe to FBI Director James Comey. This has all been known for 8 years. No sensible person should doubt that Obama was complicit up to his neck in a political smear that Trump collaborated with Russia. But as observed in the damning 306-page report by John Durham, the special counsel appointed by the first Trump Justice Department to probe the origins of Russiagate, political smears and appalling misjudgments are not violation of criminal law, absent some statutory federal offense. If there were a criminal offense that fit, Gabbard and Trump would cite it rather than chanting treason, the heinous crime of levying war against the United States or giving aid and comfort to America's wartime enemies, which clearly does not apply in this situation. Trump spent much of 2024 admonishing the country that a U.S. president must have immunity from prosecution for actions taken within the ambit of his executive power, even actions his political opponents might plausibly portray as gross abuses of power. In large measure, the Supreme Court ended up agreeing with him, yet Gabbard says she's referring to Obama to the Justice Department for possible prosecution. Putting aside that Obama's insidious actions were not crimes, that he was not charged by Durham after a 4-year investigation, and that any possibility of indicting him for 2016 and 2017 actions lapsed under the 5-year statute of limitation years ago, does Gabbard disagree with Trump that former presidents must have immunity from prosecution? More to the point, does Trump disagree with Trump? So, folks, there you have it. The reason I read all that is, again, just to remind everybody, Andy McCarthy is not a liberal. He has his own very conservative interpretation of what he calls Russiagate, okay? He is clearly a critic of the Democrats writ large, President Obama in particular, and takes Trump's side in quote-unquote Russiagate. And even he, despite all of that, says Barack Obama did not commit treason, even if everything that Gabbard and Trump said about Obama were true, which it's not. He goes to vivid lengths to say this is just not true. But even if it were, it would be protected by presidential immunity. And he's going so far as to go on Fox News and basically correct a MAGA Fox News host, Brian Kilmeade, and a MAGA Republican Senator, Ted Cruz, as well as ultimately Trump and Tulsi Gabbard themselves, about their various lies and misinterpretations of this. This is a total nothing burger designed to distract from the Epstein files, and it's not working. But I have a lot of fun debunking it using right-wing lawyers and Fox News to do it. It's a lot of fun. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.